Across the quiet vacuum between planets, a new set of images emerged, clearer, sharper, more revealing than any before. The interstellar object 3I Atlas, captured by eyes not belonging to NASA, appeared transformed. European Space Agency orbiters circling Mars and the Gemini South telescope on Earth delivered the first unfiltered look at a visitor whose behavior challenges familiarity. These frames revealed a structure growing a luminous tail, its shape rippling with energy and dust. Against the black backdrop, something foreign glinted, traces of nickel alloy, a material seldom seen in nature drifting freely through space. Every pixel whispered of distance, origin, and a chemistry that defies classification. While these revelations spread through independent networks, official silence deepened. NASA's channels, paralyzed by a government shutdown, released nothing new. The Mars Reconnaissance Orbiter's high-rise camera had recorded its own view, yet the agency's communications lines remained dormant. In that void, others spoke. Astronomers without institutional constraints shared their findings, each frame verified through cross-analysis, each image bearing timestamps and metadata confirming authenticity. Without press briefings or curated statements, the story advanced through evidence alone. This transparency returned not through proclamation, but through simple observation. The ESA's ExoMars and Mars Express orbiters provided perspective no Earth-based telescope could match. Positioned above the thin Martian atmosphere, their instruments traced the comet's motion with precision, registering the subtle expansion of its tail and the spectral signatures of its emissions. At wavelengths designed for mineral detection, sensors identified patterns inconsistent with typical icy bodies. Nickel compounds reflected light differently, their spectral lines cutting through dust like fine steel threads. The data required no translation. 3I Atlas carried elements formed under conditions unlike those of the Sun's nursery. From Chile, Gemini South's adaptive optics locked onto the object as it passed within view of Mars' orbital path. The telescope recorded streaks of light radiating outward, confirming that activity had intensified. The tail's curvature implied both rotation and venting, yet the brightness ratios did not correspond to known sublimation processes. Scientists comparing the frames noted how the reflection properties resembled metal rather than volatile ice. The implication was extraordinary: emissions of nickel alloy in a comet-like structure, an occurrence almost without precedent. This finding alone justified every observation hour diverted from other projects. Instead of the expected confirmation, bureaucratic stillness replaced verification.
Before we get to that, I need your help. I'm trying to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I need your help. So I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe and help me out.
The agency's digital archives paused updates, leaving researchers and the public to rely on foreign institutions and private observatories. The silence, though administrative, carried weight. In the absence of commentary, independent voices filled the space, not with speculation, but with data. Each uploaded frame from ESA or Gemini reinforced the same truth. The phenomenon existed, independent of permission or press release. Observation itself became resistance against interruption. The growing collection of photographs revealed layers of motion invisible in earlier sightings. As sunlight struck its surface, jets of material extended in delicate threads that wavered before fading into the dark. Analysts traced their trajectory, noting that the directionality implied internal structure guiding ejection. Nickel alloy particles scattered differently than carbon-rich dust, creating reflections of silvery tone rather than the familiar amber glow of ordinary comets. What appeared artistic in images was purely physical, metallurgy expressed through cosmic decay. Technically, the findings changed how interstellar visitors are studied. The combination of Mars-based orbiters and Earth-bound telescopes produced a stereoscopic record of motion through three-dimensional space. This dataset allowed scientists to map the trajectory with unprecedented accuracy, tracing the arc as it exited the inner solar system. The measurements confirmed that 3I Atlas traveled on a hyperbolic path, ensuring it would never return. Every captured image thus became an irreplaceable fragment of time, a record of a passing phenomenon that will not repeat. The revelation of nickel alloy emissions introduced a puzzle of formation. Such materials require processes associated with planetary cores or stellar debris. Their presence within a comet-like body suggested an origin involving collision or cataclysm long before its journey toward our Sun. Researchers refrained from conclusion, yet the chemical signatures compelled reconsideration of how interstellar matter evolves. A grain of metal drifting through space can rewrite theories built on ice and dust. Evidence has a way of restoring humility. The new high-resolution image of 3I Atlas introduced a layer of precision that changed how the object was seen. Captured not by an agency telescope but by an independent observer, it displayed details never included in the polished releases of official institutions. What emerged was structure, sharp, rotational, and deliberate in its geometry. Multiple luminous bodies encircled a central point of energy, forming an orbital arrangement faintly visible in the near-infrared range. Each component held steady alignment, turning around what appeared to be a luminous nexus rather than drifting randomly as fragments usually do. The independent astronomer magnified the original footage from the European Space Agency's ExoMars Trace gas orbiter, revealing motion with mechanical regularity. No comparable formation had been presented by NASA or any affiliated mission before this sequence reached the public. The discovery's mechanics were simple but profound. A refined optical calibration isolated faint variants inside the comet's coma, transforming what once looked like glare into pattern. For those who watched the zoomed frames, the order was unmistakable, symmetry emerging from noise. Institutional reactions followed a familiar rhythm, measured language, cautious phrasing, emphasis on instrument limits. Official statements noted differences in image processing and variations caused by viewing angles, yet none addressed the rotational coherence or the unexpected configuration encircling the bright nucleus. Silence replaced clarification. The independent imagery continued to circulate, discussed in research circles and amateur networks alike.
Before we get to that, I need your help. I'm trying to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and I need your help. So I would really appreciate it if you could subscribe and help me out.
The gap between what was shown and what was known widened quietly, not through denial, but through omission. Attention then turned to the comet's behavior, where the same independent imagery recorded a distinct jet projecting toward the sun. This reversal of orientation contradicted the thermodynamic logic that drives normal outgassing in comets. Instead, 3I Atlas appeared to direct material upstream, defying the physics of sublimation. Spectroscopic analysis linked this emission to nickel-rich compounds, notably lacking iron. This nickel-dominant jet, illuminated by solar glare yet pointing directly into it, challenged the assumption that heating alone governed release. The observation forced a reconsideration of chemical identity. Its unique chemical signature made 3I Atlas a category unto itself, neither typical asteroid nor conventional comet. That contrast, measured not theorized, transformed it from curiosity into reference, an object whose mere existence required revision of expected behavior under solar radiation. Long-term implications surfaced as analysis deepened. Polarimetric measurements added another layer. 3i Atlas displayed an exceptionally deep and narrow negative polarization branch in its scattered light. Such an optical signature had never been recorded from any comet or asteroid within the solar system. The precision of the measurement, confirmed independently, left no margin for interpretation. The surface or coma exhibited a structure unlike any known counterpart. The interplay of discovery and institutional restraint continued. Official documents referenced unusual polarization, stopping short of detailing its magnitude. Independent reports supplied the missing parameters, quantifying depth and width beyond precedent. The contrast illustrated how bureaucracy and transparency diverge when confronted with anomaly. The agencies preserved caution. The independent observer preserved accuracy. Together, they formed an unspoken collaboration through opposition. As information circulated, perception evolved. Each parameter, orbital motion, jet orientation, chemical composition, tail development, light polarization, added dimension to a single truth. 3i Atlas behaved unlike any documented comet. The new data did not accuse, it corrected. It did not sensationalize, it clarified. In doing so, it redefined how truth travels, from observation to acknowledgement, from exclusion to integration. The event reminded observers that science advances not through perfection, but through persistence. For those weary of arrogance disguised as certainty, the image offered quiet redemption. When the image of 3i Atlas appeared across personal channels before any official release, the silence that preceded it became louder than the photograph itself. A government shutdown had frozen NASA's communications, halting routine data sharing and delaying high-resolution outputs. Yet the instruments kept recording. Data flowed into repositories waiting for authorization that never came. In the gap between observation and permission, independent astronomers retrieved public telemetry, processed it, and shared what they found. The picture that reached the world first was not polished by institutional graphics, but refined by private commitment to transparency. Each pixel in that image carried both scientific weight and quiet defiance. The release did not come from a press room, but from the working computers of enthusiasts determined to keep discovery alive during political paralysis. For many, that act restored the sense of direct participation once lost to bureaucracy. The data were the same. The difference was access. The administration's silence created an information vacuum into which community voices rushed. Instead of a coordinated release with captions and institutional framing, the world received unfiltered imagery circulating across personal accounts, forums, and collaborative networks that replaced absent official briefings with collective interpretation. The enthusiasm was immediate and uncoached. Technically, the images differed little from those awaiting release, yet perception transformed them. Without captions, they invited interpretation. Observers noticed fine jet structures, uneven tails, and asymmetries that seemed new. The primary revelation was the shift in authority. Knowledge, once centralized, had diffused. The crowd that studied each frame was no longer passive but analytical, drawing upon open-source software and archival data to replicate the precision once reserved for institutions. The delay born of bureaucracy appeared deliberate to those weary of withheld information. In online communities, the shutdown's administrative constraints became a symbol of systemic fragility, the dependence of truth on authorization rather than observation. For a public long conditioned to wait for press conferences, the self-published images offered liberation through raw evidence. Within hours, the photographs had spread through countless reposts. The collective act of sharing replaced frustration with momentum, proving that curiosity persists even when systems halt. What changed was the social trajectory of discovery. Information traveled horizontally from one citizen to another, bypassing hierarchies that had once mediated every public glimpse of space. In that transition lay a subtle but permanent transformation of scientific culture. Openness born not from policy but from necessity. Among professionals, the episode prompted introspection. The realization did not condemn institutions. It reminded them that the pursuit of knowledge thrives only when transparency is continuous. When individuals filled that void responsibly, they demonstrated both loyalty to science and resistance to inertia. Emotionally, the event bridged generations of watchers. Older observers, often skeptical of modern media, felt vindicated seeing independent work restore immediacy to discovery. The images carried a moral subtext, that truth, when suppressed by circumstance, finds alternative paths to expression. The shutdown had paused communication, but not curiosity. Dialogue centered on verification, comparing brightness across frames, checking timestamps, and matching coordinates with public ephemerides. The process resembled decentralized peer review, guided not by hierarchy, but by shared discipline. Institutional commentators eventually acknowledged the independent effort. The community had already performed the function once reserved for agencies, interpreting data and distributing results. This realization was empowering. It did not replace professional science, it complemented it, restoring a balance between authority and participation. The truth had traveled faster than bureaucracy, and few wanted to return to the old pace. History, it seemed, had repeated itself under digital conditions. The episode reaffirmed that progress in observation relies as much on human persistence as on funding or policy. Even under administrative constraint, the desire to witness the cosmos remained ungovernable. The philosophical weight of the event emerged gradually. In a time when institutions guard credibility through control, a moment of governmental stillness revealed a different kind of order, one sustained by cooperation rather than command. The people who processed and shared those images did not overthrow authority. They reminded it of its origin. Knowledge is communal property, not administrative privilege. As NASA's operations resumed, the official high-resolution images were finally published. They confirmed much of what had already circulated: the intricate jets, the sharp contrast between the nucleus and tail, the subtle reflections near Mars. But the release arrived without anticipation. The world had already seen. What once would have been a global unveiling felt more like acknowledgement. Institutions provided validation, not revelation, and in that inversion, many found quiet satisfaction. The temporary shutdown had tested both infrastructure and accessibility. By turning absence into opportunity, the community preserved the continuity of discovery. The episode proved that transparency is not a luxury of stable times, but a safeguard against stagnation. When official speech paused, evidence spoke. The photograph, simple in content yet profound in consequence, illustrated that science endures through collective integrity rather than institutional permission. The light captured by orbiters reached eyes across the world unfiltered, and in that transparency, skepticism softened into renewed respect for evidence itself. The comet's image, born from interruption, became a quiet emblem of resilience, proof that when structures pause, truth continues its orbit, steady, luminous, and free. The latest images of 3I Atlas arrived like a quiet correction to an old assumption. High-resolution sensors, tuned for faint light beyond the visible spectrum, revealed colors and contours that contradicted the familiar depictions released in earlier years. What NASA once showed as a softly glowing sphere with a modest tail now appeared more intricate. Its hues shifted as it approached the sun, from neutral gray to a living green, as if solar warmth were waking new layers of its surface. Spectrographic arrays traced variations in wavelength, measuring how light scattered across dust and ice. The data showed not just reflection, but transformation. As the object absorbed energy, its spectrum evolved, revealing chemical subtleties never recorded before. Polarimetric studies added another dimension: a pronounced negative polarization, a signature absent from every known cometary catalog. To the observers, this was no trivial deviation. It was a structural fingerprint that defied the archive of ordinary explanations. The official images, beautiful in their simplicity, now seemed incomplete. What had been thought of as a single uniform glow was, in reality, a complex interplay of emission and scattering. The acknowledgement came quietly, couched in procedural language, but the implication was clear. Earlier depictions had smoothed away the object's deeper intricacies. In the new imagery, brightness followed no ordinary pattern. Instead of a coma merely reflecting sunlight, portions of the object seemed to radiate light independently. Harvard astrophysicist Avi Loeb proposed that 3I Atlas might emit its own faint luminosity. If correct, this would mean a smaller nucleus producing a disproportionate glow, a phenomenon that would rewrite the understanding of how such bodies interact with solar radiation. The light distribution no longer fit the behavior of a passive traveler. It hinted at internal activity. The visual tension between past and present evidence mirrored a larger shift, from authority defined by precedent to authority earned through transparency. The new observations replaced stillness with motion, a jet angled toward the sun, a dynamic tail changing orientation as dust expelled unevenly. The green hue was not an illusion, but a trace of volatile compounds reacting to sunlight. Negative polarization pointed to unusual dust grains, scattering light in reverse patterns. Each finding chipped away at the old image until the new portrait stood on its own, not as contradiction, but as correction. To those who had doubted institutional certainty, this felt like quiet vindication. The universe, once again, had sided with observation over assumption. Data demands humility, and the cosmos never flatters the observer. The shift in color, the unexpected polarization, and the possible self-emission of light were not anomalies to be hidden, but signals of progress. Physically, the comet's transformation reflected natural law operating under unfamiliar conditions. Interstellar matter, untouched since its formation, reacts differently when exposed to solar radiation for the first time. The unusual light behavior and spectral changes could result from compositions unknown in our system. Whether these materials reflect or emit light becomes secondary to the larger truth. Nature's variety surpasses our categories. Each measurement widens the boundary between expectation and reality. Among the broader public, fascination replaced indifference. The desire for direct engagement with evidence became its own kind of citizenship in the cosmos. The revised portrayal of 3I Atlas served as a lesson in humility. Even the most advanced instruments cannot capture the full truth at first glance. Knowledge grows not by preserving the image, but by letting it change shape. The recognition that 3I Atlas may emit light of its own challenges how humanity interprets brightness itself, a measure once thought simple, now revealed as layered. If reflection and emission coexist, then perception must evolve accordingly. This redefinition of light parallels a deeper moral one. What shines outward may carry its own source within. Truth, like luminescence, emerges both from what it receives and what it generates. As months passed, 3I Atlas continued its path, unbothered by interpretation. Its changing hues and polarized light persisted, offering new data with every rotation. The more precise the measurements became, the more profound the mystery grew. Clarity did not end curiosity, it deepened it. The object's refusal to conform to prior imagery restored the balance between humility and confidence that true inquiry demands. Institutional narratives slowly adjusted. Reports began to acknowledge the anomalous color progression and the evolving tail structure. Each revision signaled quiet respect for independent verification. In this measured acknowledgement lay a subtle justice. The data itself served as arbiter. The correction required no apology, only fidelity to evidence. In the quiet aftermath, 3i Atlas continued its trajectory beyond immediate reach. The orbs around its luminous center dispersed into cosmic distance, their motion fading into statistical abstraction. The sun-pointing jet diminished as temperature equilibrated, yet the trace of nickel remained a signature no filter could erase. The deep polarization branch stood recorded, a numerical monument to difference. Each detail entered the archive unaltered, awaiting future reference by those who value raw observation over edited certainty. The independent image transcended its pixel composition. It became an emblem of transparency reclaimed, an instance where careful eyes outside institutions restored depth to what bureaucracy had flattened. Its meaning required no exaggeration. A comet with orbs in orbit, a jet defying orientation, and light scattering unlike any measured before. The image itself stood as testimony that discovery belongs to all who look honestly, and that truth, when captured in focus, needs no endorsement to endure. As 3i Atlas continues its outward flight beyond Mars and into deeper space, its glow diminishes, yet the meaning of its visit expands. The combined efforts of ESA, Gemini, and independent astronomers have preserved a chapter of cosmic history that might otherwise have remained unseen. Each frame now archived carries more than data. It carries the reassurance that clarity survives bureaucracy. The silence once mistaken for control now feels like background noise beneath the steady hum of genuine discovery. They show a traveler from beyond our system shedding traces of metal unknown in local space, trailing a luminous breath of dust and moving freely beyond human jurisdiction. Through their clarity, a simple truth emerges. Observation remains the purest act of trust. While agencies pause and systems falter, the universe continues to reveal itself to whoever chooses to look. The interstellar visitor departs, leaving behind not chaos, but quiet evidence, light recorded honestly, shared widely, and understood without embellishment. In that measured glow, both skepticism and faith find their balance, and the cosmos restores its order once more. The story concludes not with rebellion, but with restoration. The amateur's endurance affirms that attention itself is authority. Institutions, reminded of their original purpose, rediscover that credibility grows from openness. Between them lies a continuum rather than a contest. The universe, impartial and immense, accepts all who look with sincerity. Through shared observation, the distance between power and truth diminishes until only wonder remains.